Hello everybody, this is Manu-S and welcome to another Eternal News episode. So overnight they have dropped a whole bunch of new spoilers on us, 5 in total, so time to review them. Let's dive right in. Alright, so first we have Mitotic Wisp. Card is a bit underwhelming, but has some nice aspects to it. What we get is a 2-cost 0-3 with flying, so it's a decent blocker early on. It blocks like all the 1-drops and a lot of the things that are played on turn 2 at least. While in addition, it is basically a Radiant tribal card since it reduces all Radiance cost by 1 as long as it is in play. The best card to pair this with that I can think of is Duskwalker, because getting the acceleration from Duskwalker a turn earlier is pretty good. Accelerating with a Duskwalker from 3 to 5 is a lot more powerful than from 4 to 6, for example. Or actually from 3 to 6 rather than from 4 to 7. But the problem is there's also other ways to get a Duskwalker out earlier already, and they didn't make Duskwalker good enough to begin with, and they are arguably better than Mitotic Wisp. Like, if Mitotic Wisp would just give you an extra maximum power, it would probably be very competitive with Trailmaker, since an 0-3 for a ramp unit is much better because it's harder to kill and can actually block some stuff without dying, while a Trailmaker is basically just sitting around and occasionally attacking for 2 damage if there is no blocker, but it cannot block because everything that it blocks, it just dies to, and you need to keep it around for it to accelerate you. The Trailmaker has the upside of color fixing, this doesn't, but yeah, the fact that this is a very niche sort of ramp effect on a very niche tribe makes it pretty low impact. Sure, it has an ultimate, but even the ultimate is not particularly great in my opinion. When 7 other units go to the void, which I assume means once the 7th unit goes to the void, like, or actually, I don't know, like, it's really weird. Like, one would assume that it means that they're, like, the way it reads as if 7 units at the same time have to go to the void. It doesn't specify your units, so it's like yours and opponents. Like, for example, if there is 7 units and a Mitotic Wisp in play and you would harsh rule, it could trigger, but it might not even then, because I'm not sure if it can trigger if it dies at the same time as the other 7 units. But basically, that would be like a scenario which is unlikely true, because that would make it like almost impossible to trigger, because there's rarely a case where like 7 units die at the same time on both sides together. So I would assume that when a unit dies and there's 7 or more units between you and the opponent's void, the ultimate triggers, but then they could have really worded that better. Like, for example, when a unit dies and there are 7 or more units in your void and the enemy's void combined, draw a Radiant of your choice from your deck. The problem is it draws a Radiant. Radiants are pretty so-so. There's no like super good Radiants that you want to draw late in the game really that would make this worth it either. Like, it's not a great payoff because Radiance is a pretty meh and niche tribe. So yeah, card is kind of sad. It has some cool directions and cool aspects, but it's just like, yeah, not, it's like focusing on a tribe that doesn't make it work out. Like, if this would have like tribal synergies with a good tribe, I think the card would actually be sweet, because a 0-3 flying accelerant is arguably the best body for a ramp unit, and having an ultimate attached that gives you some card advantage later is perfect for a ramp unit, because they usually are really good in the early and mid game and then basically become blank later when you have enough power, and then becoming relevant again or turning into like a real threat virtually is awesome. But since this is all centered on Radiance, the card is more or less useless in my book right now. unfortunate. Well, on to the next card. This is a big one. I'll shrink this a bit because somehow we got a ginormous image of it. This is the biggest spoiler so far, Hailstorm. So, Lightning Storm's bigger brother. This costs double primer, which is very important. Like, if this would cost single primer, it would be absurdly format warping. It's already very format warping and really good, but it's important that it costs double primer on turn 3, so not every deck can just freely splash it and jam it in. You have to commit to being heavy primal to support this. And then you get 3 power, 3 damage to each unit, which is a big deal, given that Lightning Storm right now doesn't really kill a whole lot in most decks, outside of, say, like some Gunslingers draws and like Skycrag, basically, because a lot of the good units, even in aggressive decks, have 3 or more health, mostly 3. So the difference between Lightning Storm and this is huge. Lightning Storm is not very well positioned, nor is Setback, but Setback at least had like an alternative mode, while Lightning Storm just is a blank a lot of the time. And yeah, Hailstorm is just great. It's something that slower and controlling and reactive decks desperately need to keep up with the powerful things going on in the format, and this will give them a great way to like combat the more powerful unit strategies with all the 3 health units, like the Blade deck, like Rocano, like so many other decks, like Gunslingers. It just is a really great tool in any control shell, really. The card is definitely going to have a big impact on the format. I don't think it will necessarily kill any deck, but it will make some decks much more viable and much more competitive, and shake up the metagame quite a bunch. It's a pretty interesting release, and yeah, definitely looking forward on the impact of the card. It also requires more skill in a way to play against decks with this card in it if your deck is impacted by Hailstorm and so on. So yeah, definitely gonna be interesting to see how this one plays out. Okay, on to the next. Whoop. This one is a pretty small one. Again, so we have Sandglass Jagan. This is a really weird one, first of all, because double fire, double time, so definitely a heavy Praxis card. 5 power 6/1. Not impressive at first glance. Then we got Reckless, makes it even more awkward, but then we get an important line, invulnerable to damage. So this is basically a 5 cost, 6 attack attacking machine. This will just attack every turn because it has to, and the only way to stop it is having a blocker that has more health, some non-damage based removal, or a way to like stun it. And to balance it a bit, so that it doesn't basically sort of virtually time walk the opponent in terms of combat for 1 turn, when you play it, it basically enters the play exhausted, because once you play it, it exhausts itself. So if you put it in play from anywhere, it is gonna be exhausted the first turn, so the opponent can still normally attack into you, because having this up the turn before it attacks would basically keep the opponent from having any profitable attacks with non-evasion units, which might make this card a bit too swingy, given that it also is really obnoxious to fight against. So the exhaustion is pretty important to make the card raceable without having an answer to it, because otherwise if you play it, it completely stalls the opponent for a turn and then goes into a super heavy racing mode that will be hard to race while having lost a turn and so on. So that's a pretty nice way to balance this type of effect, and the beginning of units that enter play exhausted basically in this game. It's interesting that they chose to make the exhaustion a summon rather than just a static text that says put this into play exhausted or something. Also means the card cannot be used to bond sentinels. Like for example, otherwise it would be great to play this on 5 and then bond out the 5-3 charge sentinel attack, and then the turn after you have the 6-1 reckless, invulnerable to damage, and the charger. So yeah, that is another reason I assume why it is exhausted, because it's 6 attack for 5. It's a really good bonder. Any unit that has more attack than it costs makes for a great bond unit, obviously, because then you're actually saving power by bonding, like you accelerate. Okay, on to the next card. We have Lesrai Skystrider. This is kind of a cool and interesting card. First, it's a bit innocuous. It's a 4-cost 2/2, looks pretty underpowered, but it actually is quite a neat and sort of powerful-ish package. It also pushes another tribe that isn't really considered a tribe yet. So when Lesrai Skystrider attacks, your attacking elves get flying this turn. That's pretty cool, especially considering that there's a bunch of good infiltrate elves that really appreciate flying on attack, like Lesrai Ranger or everybody's favorite Beast Caller. So giving flying to these, pretty big. Also itself gets flying, so it's effectively a 4-power 2/2 flying on offense and a 4-power 2/2 on defense. This is clearly meant to be an offensive unit, so the not having flying on defense doesn't matter as much. And then we get an elf ally to push more elf tribal synergies on top of the attack effect. You get to draw a spell from the top 4 cards of your deck and discard the rest. So both you can dig for, say, a Haunting Scream to go with that Beast Caller, and potentially put cards for your Haunting Scream in your Void. Or you can dig for removal or a Dark Return. So they're basically pushing for an elf-centric, infiltrate-ish, tempo or aggro control Feln deck here that looks actually really cool. Like, this is gonna potentially provide us with another Haunting Scream deck aside from the very grindy combo control-y or aggro control-y version that I built a bit ago. And I'm definitely going to build with this one as well, because the card is really cool and interesting. It's not overly powerful, it's a very middled and balanced card, but there's a lot going on between the flying on offense and the fact that it potentially replaces itself, and that the cards that you don't take go to the void, making it synergize well with cards like Dark Return and Haunting Scream is really cool. I definitely like the card. It's a cool card. It's not the most powerful card, but it's a very interesting card. Exactly the kind of cards I like. Something to brew with. Have to check what other elves we got that might be worth looking at, other than like Lesrai Ranger and Beast Caller, for example. There's probably a few more. Anyway, on to the last spoiler. Pock Rockpacker. This card is like, I don't know. This card is horrible. I don't know what else to say about it. First of all, the guy costs 3. Is a 1/5. Like, that's okay. Pretty underwhelming. But it has Reckless. Like, what is this? This guy is a 1/5 Reckless, so effectively what you get is a useless unit, because it is going to just be blocked by everything without ever threatening any unit to realistically die from blocking this, and eventually there will be a blocker big enough that just eats it. So it does legit nothing. It has the stats of a blocker and then Reckless. And then the only other thing it does is, if you bond it, which means you have enough Yetis, is you get a snowball. Like, so basically you get a 3-cost snowball, effectively. Not much else. Like, even if you have a Wump, this is like a 2/6. Still pretty blockable for most things. Or ignorable, even. So unless you have like the 5-drop that turns it into a 3/5 and is probably dead by then, and has attacked multiple turns without doing anything and not being able to block, so basically been a blank for multiple turns, it becomes a 3/5, which at that stage in the game is also not very impressive. Like, this card is so bad, I don't know what they are trying to tell us. And you also only get a snowball if you bond. Just wow, like, and also, why would you want to put this in your deck? Like, this is basically a horrible version of Snowcrust Yeti. Is it Snowcrest Yeti? No, Snowcrest Yeti is the 1-drop. I mean the 2-drop, the Snowslinger Yeti, I think is the name. The 2/2 infiltrate that draws you a snowball if it hits the enemy. This is like a terrible version of that card, basically. Like the infiltrate Yeti is a decent card that is even worse considering in like a Yeti tribal deck, while this card is just like horrible. I don't get this card. It's just wow bad. The card seems about as trolly as the Yetis seem and appear and act, basically. This is just like mind-bogglingly bad and useless and absurd. And I don't think I'm missing anything that there's like some synergies or interactions that somehow make this card good. It's just, yeah. It's also, by the way, not good at bonding itself at 1/5, so it's not like you can circumvent the Reckless by bonding out some stuff. Because it has 1 attack, so it's just, yeah, just a useless card. Wow. No words for this. I guess it's a 24-card adventure and Pock Pock. Pock Pock Chip. That's all I can say to this card. Anyway, that's it for this spoiler review. We have 10 cards of 25 by now. I don't think they're going to spoil many more, so the adventure will most likely hit this week. Some people are assuming it's going to be today, which is possible. I think the last adventures hit on Tuesday, so it's very possible. Otherwise, probably the usual later this week, like Thursday or Friday. But yeah, I think both other adventures, other campaigns hit on Tuesday, so chances are reasonable that we'll get it today even, which would be kind of cool because I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the other 15 cards, especially given that, for example, in Horus Trevor, some of the most exciting and impactful cards in the adventure were not spoiled. Like, I think Cinder Yeti wasn't spoiled and was one of the best cards in the adventure, for example. Alright, that's it for this Eternal News episode and my review. I'm Manu S, thanks for watching, and I'm out. Bye.